On June 1st, 1937, Amelia Earhart left Oakland, California, attempting to circumnavigate the globe. Her journey would have taken her 29,000 miles and over 40 days to complete, and would have included 20 stops, including San Juan, Calcutta, and Bangkok. Unfortunately, something must have gone terribly wrong during the last leg of her journey, because her last transmission is said to have sounded frantic. Some have alleged that this was due to her running low on fuel and being potentially lost. What is not in dispute, however, is on July 2nd, 1937, Amelia Earhart, along with her navigator, Fred Noonan, disappeared without a trace. Was this disappearance due to human error and easily explainable, or was there something far more insidious at play? This is the story of Amelia Earhart. But before we get into today's story, my name is Jennifer, and I'm a psychic, intuitive, and tarot reader. And if you're a fan of the dark and mysterious with a little tarot thrown in for good measure, then I am the girl for you. I upload 2 times a week on this channel, and if you're really a fan of tarot, you can join me on my other channel, Jennifer Walker Zen. So if that's of interest of you, I would ask you to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my uploads. Now let's get back into today's story. Amelia Earhart was born on July 24, 1897 in Atchison, Kansas, and was a very energetic child from the beginning. She was considered a tomboy by many, always searching for adventure. She was also considered a daredevil, even when she was a young girl. There was a famous story about Amelia sledding down a hill as a young girl that to many exemplifies just how daring she was even back then. It's alleged that while sledding down a hill, a horse and wagon began coming down the road, and rather than turning aside or trying to avoid it, she decided the best option would be to slide underneath it. Amelia's parents, however, Edwin and Amy Earhart, viewed their daughter's rambunctious behavior as merely a phase and would eventually grow out of. They continuously groomed their 2 daughters to be what they considered to be proper little girls. Amelia's mother was particularly controlling due to the fact that she thought Amelia's behavior was unsuitable, especially if she intended to get married someday. Amelia, however, was unfrazzled by her mother's demands and embraced such things as chemistry and sports. 2 things at the time were unheard of for women. On the outside, it may have appeared as if Amelia had a carefree life. However, in truth, her youth was overshadowed by her parents' embittered marriage. Edwin Earhart, her father, was a struggling lawyer who couldn't hold down a job and was constantly battling alcoholism, and was constantly a source of disappointment and at times embarrassment in her teenage life. Her experiences with her father have led many to believe that is why she never seemingly allowed anyone to get too close to her, especially emotionally. Amelia escaped from the painful memories of her adolescence by shifting her emotions to help others during World War I. She enlisted as a volunteer nurse at the Toronto Convalescent Hospital. While caring for wounded military pilots, Amelia's interest in aviation was awakened. After the war, Amelia moved back home with her parents, who now lived in Southern California. Edwin, aware of his daughter's restless spirit and her secret passion to fly, treated Amelia to her first plane ride in an air circus show. From that moment on, Amelia was hooked. She persuaded her father to pay for flying lessons from a top female flight instructor at Kenner Airfield in Long Beach, California. She eventually borrowed money to purchase her own plane, which she painted yellow and called it the Canary. Flying provided Amelia with the thrill and adventure she had always dreamed of. In order to pay for her expensive hobby, she began taking on odd jobs. She was also secretly began to transform how she looked to truly embrace the look and the feel of a true aviator. She secretly cut her long hair a little bit at a time so as not to raise too much suspicion with her mother. She began wearing riding pants and boots with a heavy leather coat. Amelia briefly found romance with and got engaged to Sam Chapman, an engineer who boarded with her parents. It is largely speculated that the engagement was due primarily to make her mother happy, and as a result, didn't last very long. Around the same time, her parents separated, and as a result, Amelia moved with her mother and sister to Boston, leaving behind her airplane and her dreams of becoming an aviator. Amelia briefly enrolled at Columbia University and eventually accepted a job teaching English to immigrant children. She took up flying again on the weekends, and on occasion, she was written up in the local newspaper as a flying girl flyer. This unsolicited exposure turned out to be the big break she was looking for. And in 1928, she got a surprise phone call from a public relations looking for a female pilot interested in being the first woman to fly across the Atlantic. The flight was marketed as a goodwill gesture between the US and England. The friendship flight, as it was christened, was scheduled to take place exactly 1 year after Charles Lindbergh, the American aviator, made his landmark transatlantic flight. The promotional genius behind the event was promoter George Palmer Putnam, better known as GP. He was a book publisher and a publicist who issued the best-selling biographies of Charles Lindbergh and the polar explorer Richard E. Byrd. GP is described by many who knew him as flamboyant, charming, but above all else a mastermind when it comes to marketing. GP recognized the marketable star quality in Amelia from the very start, with her feminine looks and daredevilish spirit. However, with that being said, she was not to be allowed to fly the plane. Instead, was made assistant captain and log taker. The crew consisted of the pilot, Wilmer Stoltz, and the mechanic, Slim Gordon. After a few days of delay due to bad weather, the friendship flight took off from Boston on June 18, 1928. That, however, would not be the end of the delays. As soon as they were airborne, they were faced with a blinding fog that forced them to land in Nova Scotia. They were stuck there for 13 days. During the time, William Stoltz, the pilot, spent most of his time being extremely intoxicated. It was largely due to Amelia's experience with an alcoholic father and quick thinking that saved the flight. Amelia is reported to have forced cups of coffee down Stoltz, desperately trying to sober him up. As a result, they were able to resume their flight and navigate successfully for over 20 hours. In a blanket of fog, snow, and icy rain, they finally landed off the shores of southern Wales. Amelia and crew were welcomed by the woman mayor of Southampton, Miss Walsh. It was during this encounter that Amelia Earhart became a celebrity. She captured the headlines over her 2 male crew members, and at that time was a rarity at best. Reporters began calling her Lady Lindy because of her physical resemblance to the legendary pilot Charles Lindbergh. This comparison, however, horrified Amelia, not so much because they were comparing her looks to that of a man, but mainly due to the fact that she was not an accomplished pilot. GP had no such issues and immediately began grooming his Lindy look-alike to become the most famous aviator in the world. As her agent, he instructed her to smile without opening her mouth to hide the gap between her front teeth, and to stop wearing silly hats that hid her wavy blonde hair. Amelia acquiesced begrudgingly and adapted quickly to her newfound fame. She was an instant sensation on the lecture circuit. However, people were more interested in what she was wearing than what she had to say about flying. It is unknown whether GP or Amelia herself recognized the influence she was having on women's fashion, but what is not in dispute is Amelia had such a flair for fashion that she eventually designed her own line of clothing to further promote her image. Amelia was fast becoming a charismatic speaker, as well as a fashion icon and established pilot. As a result, she received thousands of dollars from product endorsements and corporate sponsors. In conjunction with her own personal success, Amelia was a fierce advocate for women pilots and was very concerned about careers in aviation for women. What was very well known in aviation circles, but not very well known to the public, is that in reality, Amelia was not the best female aviator of her time and was no stranger to accident. In fact, Amelia became quite ill during long flights, especially due to the fumes of the gasoline. It is alleged that her lack of skill was primarily due to her being on the lecture circuit and promoting female aviation. Additionally, what is roundly agreed upon is that she was the whole package. She had the personality and she presented herself well and was a thoroughly modern woman of her time. She possessed both masculine and feminine qualities, which made her appeal to both men and women. And in Depression-era America, she epitomized what it was to be a hero. Her relationship with her agent and promoter, GP, was becoming complex at best. GP was not very well liked by anyone, and in aviation circles, GP was known as the pushy promoter who always muscled his way into photographs with Amelia to profit from her glory. But Amelia felt he was misunderstood, and on some level, she needed him. She agreed to marry him, although the day before the wedding, she got cold feet and drafted a brutally honest letter to him. Quote, "You must know, again, my reluctance to marry. I understand I shall not hold you to any medieval code of faithfulness to me, nor shall I consider myself bound to you. I must exact a cruel promise, and that is you will let me go in a year if we find no happiness together." End quote. GP accepted Amelia's marriage conditions the next day. The two were married during a modest wedding ceremony in Connecticut. After exchanging vows, Amelia removed her wedding ring and never wore it again. Rather than a honeymoon, the newlyweds went back to work preparing for Amelia's next flight. May 20th, 1932, Amelia Earhart arrived in Harbor Grace, Newfoundland, ready to embark on her solo overseas flight. At 7:15 p.m., Amelia's lifted off in her Lockheed Vega, but as fate would have it, trouble began almost immediately. She found herself flying through blinding clouds with ice and snow coating the wings of the plane. Miraculously, she was able to navigate through this and, as dawn approached, was able to land in a cow pasture near Londonderry, Ireland. Within hours, photographers and reporters mobbed the meadow. Back in New York, she was honored with an extravagant ticker tape parade. 5 years earlier, Americans applaud Charles Lindbergh for becoming the first man to make the ocean journey. Now they cheered on Amelia Earhart, the first woman to solo across the Atlantic. Amelia's confidence and raw courage helped her solo across the Atlantic. However, her greatest aviation challenge was yet to come. By 1934, Amelia Earhart was one of the best-known women in the world, and more than any other aviator at her time, Amelia used her notoriety to popularize commercial air service. She attracted hundreds of new customers to an up-and-coming airline company, which eventually became TWA. Amelia and GP eventually moved from New York to Southern California. GP had been spending much of his time in Los Angeles working as an editorial director for Paramount Pictures. And as a result, Amelia found herself spending time with movie stars such as Mary Pickford and Gary Cooper. With that said, however, she was careful to keep her private life and public life separate, largely due to her realizing she was a public figure and any degree of scrutiny would tarnish what she was trying to achieve for women in aviation. In January of 1935, she took off from Honolulu, Honolulu. 18 hours later, she landed in Oakland, California to become the first person, man or woman, to fly solo from Hawaii to the mainland. The flight itself was a phenomenal success. However, the press labeled it as a corrupt publicity stunt due to GP receiving money to fund the flight from Hawaiian businessmen who failed to pay their taxes. And at this point, Amelia's popularity began to decline, but both Amelia and GP had grown accustomed to living a lavish lifestyle. However, there was also a realization that the era-setting record-breaking flights were coming to an end. And it was jointly decided by both Amelia and GP that one more profitable flight would be needed in order to be financially set for life. And in 1936, that opportunity presented itself. Amelia announced she was attempting her most challenging and dangerous long-distance flight to date. She announced a solo around-the-world flight. Other pilots had already successfully made the flight. However, Amelia was going to be slightly different. She was going to be circling the equator. She traded in her Lockheed Veda for a two-engine Electra, the most advanced aircraft of its time. She was able to raise $80,000 for the ambitious flying venture from Purdue University, where she once worked as a counselor for young women. Additionally, to prevent scrutiny of flights being another publicity stunt, Amelia stated that the airplane was to be a flying laboratory for aeronautical research. Amelia was initially going to make the trip solo, but due to her lack of navigation skills, she assembled an elite crew. Paul Mann was her technical advisor, along with two highly qualified navigators, Harry Manning and Fred Noonan. The aircraft was installed with a two-way radio and a Morse code transmission key. It's alleged that Amelia didn't know Morse code and showed very little interest in understanding how to use the two-way radio on board. To some, this was a clear indication that she was cutting corners. And maybe if she had taken the time to learn, could have possibly saved her life. On March 17, 1937, Amelia and her crew left from Oakland, California on their around-the-world flight. The takeoff was successful. Unfortunately, though, as she was speeding down the runway in Honolulu to refuel, the Electra suddenly ground looped and crashed. Many blamed the accident on careless flying on the part of Amelia, while others claimed it was a sign that maybe she should abort the mission. Amelia, however, was undeterred, or at least that's what she displayed publicly. Behind the scenes, some have claimed she was terrified and up to that point had showed no fear when it came to flying. However, the latest crash had left her shaken. Nevertheless, she pushed forward, knowing promises had been made and contracts needed to be honored. Amelia would have to make the second attempt with two less crew members. Harry Manning had to return to his job and Paul Mann was edged out by GP. This left Amelia with Fred Noonan. Neither of them were skilled in radio communication and Noonan was known to have a drinking problem. Yet for Amelia, there was no backing out. On June 1st, 1937, Earhart and Noonan took off once again, this time from Miami, Florida. Amelia had left behind two key communication devices, a trailing wire antenna and her Morse code key, neither of which she had never needed on her previous flights. The route took them to South America, Africa, India, and Australia. Amelia had flown almost 3/4 of the way around the world without a hitch. But when they landed to refuel in New Guinea, Amelia cabled a code message to GP of a personal problem. What this personal problem was is unknown. Some have claimed it was Noonan's drinking problem resurfacing. Others claimed it most likely was Amelia's health issues. What is known is that upon GP hearing of her issues, cabled back telling her to abort the flight, but she was determined to continue. And on July 2nd, Amelia and Noonan took off from New Guinea bound for Holland Island. The Coast Guard cutter Itasca was positioned near Holland Island to pick up radio signals from the Electra, but Amelia couldn't adjust her radio to the correct frequency. The Itasca could hear her, but she couldn't hear them. Additionally, Amelia was unable to use Morse code. As the minutes slipped by, Amelia signaled again, running out of gas. Can't hear you at all. A short time later, Amelia's faint voice was heard for the last time. We are on line of position 157337. We are running north and south. After that, they heard nothing. No other transmission was heard. Three prevailing theories as to what happened. In the days after contact was lost with the Electra, radio stations all over the Pacific, as well as amateur radio enthusiasts, reported picking up distress signals from the plane, something that could only have been possible had it gone down on land. For this reason, many had theorized that Amelia did not ditch into the ocean near Holland Island, but in fact may have landed somewhere else. The first theory, having realized Holland Island wasn't going to work, the Electra headed northwest, eventually crash landing on the Japanese-occupied Marshall Islands, where Earhart and Noonan were promptly taken prisoner and executed. Several Marshall Islanders reported having seen a plane crash in the area at the time, and some claimed to have seen Earhart being held in a prison camp. Others even came forward to say that they witnessed her execution. The Japanese capture theory gained some serious momentum in 2017 when the History Channel uncovered a photo taken of the Marshall Islands that appeared to show Earhart and Noonan, and possibly even the Electra, in the background being towed by a Japanese ship. However, upon deeper examination of the photo, it was discovered it was taken around 1935, 2 years before they had ever went missing. Yet there are still some that cling to this theory. The second theory, the Electra instead flew south to Gardner Island, which today is called Nakiru. According to this theory, the Electra landed and survived on the island for an unknown period of time before succumbing to the elements. Additionally, this island is known to have very large coconut crab population, which are known to be extremely predatory and eating virtually anything. There are a few intriguing details pointing the search in this direction. The last known directional coordinate sent by the Electra would have taken the aircraft right by Gardner Island, and many of the radio signals picked up by the amateur radio enthusiast in the days after the plane went missing were triangulated to almost exactly that spot. The idea that the Electra made it to Gardner Island was considered plausible at the time, and the US Navy planes flew over it a week later to search for Amelia and Noonan. But after not seeing any wreckage or signs of life, they continued to search elsewhere. Few years later, the bones of an apparent castaway were found on the island by British sailors. The remains were immediately examined and found to be a male. Concluded to assume that the remains were no longer of interest, they were packed into a box and forgotten about. Many scientists today believe, however, they could have been Amelia's, and that with modern technology would have proven her fate once and for all. Unfortunately, the remains are still lost to this day. The third theory. Unable to find Holland Island, Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan crashed into the Pacific Ocean, and the Electra quickly sank beneath the waves, never to be seen again. And yet, that doesn't explain all those radio signals supposedly picked up from the Electra in the days after it went missing. But it's difficult to know for sure what people were really tuning into. There were hundreds of stations around the Pacific trying to get a hold of the Electra, and it's impossible that all the confusion led to false reports. But it does make you wonder, what if? Now that you know the story, let's get some answers. Join me in my investigation room. souls, welcome to the investigation room. I want to preface this on saying, as I always say, for legal purposes, this is a statement, legal statement. This is going to be for entertainment purposes only and allegedly. So all this tarot reading is going to be entertainment purposes only and allegedly. Okay, let's jump right in here. Okay, so I want to ask a series of questions, and I am doing this based on some of you guys had wanted me to do a longer tarot reading on this, on these readings. So I am. So let's jump right in here. I have a series of questions. So the first question is, why couldn't Amelia see Howland Island? Okay, so let's jump right in here. So there wasn't an ideal situation, or she didn't have everything that she needed. There was some kind of air of mystery. There was a want to make someone happy. I get the sense that was a masculine energy, a Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces energy. There was some kind of responsibilities or burdens. There was some deceptions or something that was hidden about this situation, possibly a lack of planning. So I get the sense it was because of this masculine energy and something to do with a burden on this situation, something to do with responsibility for this masculine energy, which caused this issue here. All right, let's move on to our next question. All right, so my next question is, was Amelia sick during this last flight? Okay, so was there health issues? Was there issues around that? So let's find out. I looked for specific cards and I didn't see those specific cards that could indicate a health issue. Okay, and also when you get the death card, that is a hard no. So I would say that the reason, or what the cards want to say here around this, is that there was this relationship and concerns of a missed opportunity and needing some kind of clarity or victory here. There was a lot of worries and concerns about this decision, and there was a concern about loss of money, Five of Pentacles energy, and we see Gemini, Libra, Aquarius energy in making this choice. So again, we see this masculine energy that could be the issue around this situation. Okay, my darlings, we are going to move to our next question. So to be clear cut on this, no. Okay, so the next question is, did Amelia crash on land or did she crash on water? So what happened here? Okay, so this one I psychically picked up on while doing this story, okay? And what I saw was, I saw her on a beach area, and I saw that the plane had crashed, and I saw her walking around. So I would say, since I saw like a beachy area and I saw her walking around and I also saw the ocean in the background, I would say to you that it looked to me like she had crashed on an island. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. So our next question is, did Amelia live very long after the crash? Very strange cards, actually. Okay, so we see that there is, the answer is yes. We see that there was communication, okay? Something to do with communication, some clarity, and a victory. And Empress does talk about somebody who takes care of themselves. We see that there was this huge potential, and we see that there was this leadership role that was taken, and we see that there was this giving energy because of something to do with the past, memories of the past, something pertaining to the past, and the sense of truth here. So I would say yes, but it's also interesting that there is multiple people cards here. We have a Aries, Sagittarius, Leo energy, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn energy, and a Gemini, Libra, Aquarius energy. And you can see that's very interesting that someone is giving something here, all right? Giving some kind of attention to the people here. And we see, because of memories of past, something to do with the past. And we see that there is this truth. So that's very interesting. So let's go move on to our next question. So the final question is, were the distress signals reported in the Pacific Ocean from Amelia's aircraft? So I can see that there was a person that picked up on it. Looks like a feminine energy, okay? But it looks like the majority of the people that were involved, I get the sense that no, they didn't. It's this one particular person that did pick up on some kind of distress signal, but I get the sense that there was other reasons why maybe possibly people had said that they had picked up on some kind of distress signal. We see knowledge of money, and we see scholar or book, okay? We see that there was the stuck energy, but we do see that there was this feminine energy who did pick up on a distress signal, specifically from Amelia's aircraft. All right, my darlings, I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you guys like it this way, you want me to continue this way, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments below. I definitely love hearing from you guys. I do read my comments and I do enjoy your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you guys at the next case.